Welcome to 13 Minutes of Gig News. In 13 minutes or less, the sick version. You guys, I've got a little bit of a cold from podcast movement this week. Being around 3,500 people from all different parts of the world. Not shocked. Feeling a little better than yesterday. But let's just jump right in. Let me see if I can get through this because 13 minutes seems about as long as I can handle right now. So Instacart, after all these years, we went through their pricing before, where they were at, how far they've slid. But now, kind of out of nowhere, about a week ago, they announced they're going to IPO, and they said they'd do it next month. Well, they filed the IPO yesterday, so now it looks like they'll be going live on the Nasdaq, or they will be going onto the Nasdaq. It's a question of when. They've filed the correct paperwork. My big question is, what will the shares come out at, and how many share distributions will be made? Because this will really be the tell of what Instacart thinks their value is, and then what investors think their worth is. And I think there's going to be a big difference in there. In fact, if we go back and look at Uber and Lyft, if you guys remember, Uber and Lyft came out at about twice when Uber came out on the Dow and Lyft came out on the Nasdaq, they came out about twice, or they came out at a value when they opened, and by the end of that first trading day, both of them were at about half of their value. So the Dow and the index, like I've talked about before, don't know how to treat these gig economy stocks or gig economy companies that have no assets, not many employees, no buildings. It's like, okay, you're worth all this money for the database is what you're saying. And I don't think they know how to really compute that. So after Lyft and Uber went public, all the other unicorn and tech startup type IPOs kind of paused. Like if you really look, not a lot have gone since then, because everybody that was going at that time that was trying to go public their value was being diminished so much. But the reality is that is the value. Sometimes the market can be like, is this right? And I get that, but this kind of brought some reality to what are these companies truly worth. Having divisions like autonomous, that all that stuff is looked into. Like, okay, you're in autonomous. Are you really? And when they find out that Uber is last out of the 200 companies doing autonomous, Uber's last in line, the Dow is going to react to that. It's going to say, well, that's not worth crap, and it's actually a liability to you to have it. So we'll see. I'm me and Instacart. I've been very interested in this. They went from 39 billion 22 months ago. There's been a couple things marching down the line, and now we know for certain they are valued under $10 billion. Between 5 and 8 is what I keep seeing everywhere. But that's in 22 months. I mean, Lyft is under 1 billion now with cash on hand. I mean, these companies are very struggling. They need, for all the people who think like all these investors make all the money and they haven't reported profits, and Uber just reported their first profit. You got to remember, Lyft is going out of business unless something changes major. And you can say no, but go look at the numbers. Lyft is going out of business. I mean, they're not declaring bankruptcy. They're not, but they are interested in anybody making a good offer to buy them. Nobody will anymore because their database isn't worth anything anymore. They've really dropped the ball, and I think that all rideshare drivers, just like me, can appreciate the fact that without Lyft, it's going to be ugly. We talked on the roundtable this week about in Phoenix, Arizona, there's 4 startup rideshare companies that just launched. We need that to happen in a lot of cities. We need more localized rideshare companies that aren't looking to dream big and be Uber and go global, but just ones that are looking to serve their communities or even their state, maybe, like Denver and Boulder. Maybe they could have 2. I'm just saying that if Lyft goes under, the time to do that play would be now, not after they go under. Because after they go under, if they do, Uber will dominate everything. Not that they don't already. Moving on to the next topic here. Excuse me, guys. The lead author, I know we've talked about this a lot. The lead, but we need to discuss. In Minnesota, the Uber Lyft drivers wanted a minimum wage, and the Senate and the House approved it. They kicked it up to the governor. He gave his first veto ever and said no. Normally, that's not like him. He would have gone along with this. He said more research is needed. So what did they do? In Minneapolis, the city council decided, well, forget that. We're still going to go after it. And they approved it and kicked it to the mayor. Now, remember, city council and mayor are way under Senate, House, and state governor. So they're trying it on a much more localized level. What did the mayor say? Same thing. Much more research is needed. And then they appointed, so the person who authored the bill for Uber Lyft drivers to be for the minimum wage he was given the title of the person who would lead the committee to look into more research, like the governor and the mayor said. After the governor said it, he didn't comment. After the mayor said that he needed more research too, he quit the task force. I don't know if you guys read as big into this as I do, but that's, to me, if you wrote a bill, if the House, Senate approved it, kicked it to the governor, he vetoed it, city council approved it, mayor vetoed it because it needs more research, I would expect that guy to stay on the research board, especially being the lead for it. But he stepped away. To me, this is just me personally, it tells me that his bill was not written very well. And because if it was such a great bill, why isn't he on the task force? Why would he leave the task force? He's not leaving politics. He just decided he doesn't want to do that. So to me, I'm kind of blown away, because I thought you guys are asking for a lot to begin with. And again, I want nothing but good for all drivers. However, it needs to be a balance. You can't go too far. And to be honest, I think that he just showed his real colors. He just stepped away from this. Okay, not only are they going to have you on the task force, they're going to put you in charge of it. And now you're done? Okay, well, to me, that just tells me that this bill wasn't ready to be a bill. So, I'm sorry, because I think that up there, everywhere, drivers need to be paid better. But this, I think that when you go about it wrong, you do more damage than good. Especially when you just get shot down like this, and then they say, let's put a task force in. I got to tell you, that task force was not made up of this guy who wrote the bill and a bunch of people who will oppose it either. The people who are on the task force are union members and this and that. The task force is very built in a way that if this is right, it will get handled. And he still walked away. So anyway, I'm not a big fan of that. Real quickly, while we're on this topic, so the Seattle model is one that a lot of people like, and that's what Minnesota was kind of going after. They actually were using pretty much the same pricing model. Instead of $1.50 and 50 cents a mile, they used $1.40 and 50 cents a mile. And to me, that's like, well, it's 3 times as much to live in Seattle as it is Minneapolis. So, maybe a lot of this just did need a lot more research. I'm not sure. But DoorDash has to pay $1.6 million for violating Seattle's sick pay leave for gig workers. So that was part of the agreement in the Seattle deal that everybody loves. But here we go. The gig companies, and this should shock nobody. Just because they made an agreement doesn't mean they're going to live up to it. I mean, they have so far. It's been about a year. They've been paying what they're supposed to, but now it comes to sick leave or sick time, and they're already getting sued. There's more lawsuits on the way. So clearly something isn't meshing perfectly up there. I mean, I think it's, it was a good idea, but Teamsters were involved, unions were involved, and I don't not like the Teamsters, but being from Michigan, being a Detroit boy growing up, I got to tell you, the Teamsters aren't always, even by the people who you think might love the Teamsters, they're not always loved by everybody. They're not always bad either, but I don't think they need to stick their hand in here. I don't think it belongs in the gig economy space, and I think most people agree with me on that. We see that whenever we see real polls about who wants to be independent. Excuse me, guys, my nose is going crazy. The other, the last one I wanted to talk about here today is Uber in California now. To drive for Uber, you have to be 25 years old. The insurance company by the way, 3 companies have had to say, Uber, we can no longer insure you. So Uber's kind of running into a problem in this country with insurance. You'd think insurance companies would love it because they have so many clients, right? But insurance companies are running into a lot of problems with wanting to insure these companies. So, excuse me, guys. So, they had to move it to 25 to people who potentially have a better driving record. They just can't let the 21 to 25-year-olds drive anymore because they can't. The insurance companies aren't even profiting off this. They're losing money by being involved with Uber. And this is why the other one left them too. And whatever river it was or whatever was the name of it. But they're potentially on the verge of losing their contract with their insurance company now. So, I mean, I guess what does that tell me? That tells me that there's just so many flaws. And it's like, no matter what, these companies, Uber especially, Uber will not step up. They know some changes they can make to pay drivers better, to do this, and that would end a lot of lawsuits and kill a lot of potential regulations and might even, kill their lawyer bills, everything, but they will not make them. So there is something very wrong with why Uber won't ever come to the table with an open mind. And that needs to be looked into more. And that I will be doing as soon as I'm better. Because right now, I am feeling like crap. But I'm feeling better than yesterday. And I do know a couple people at Podcast Movement. There was an email that came out to us the day after that said that some people had COVID. So I took a COVID test yesterday, don't have it, but I'm going to take another one today just to make sure. But when I started getting sick too, and I saw that email, I was like, crap. So I thought I had it, but I don't. And that's 13 minutes of news in just under 13 minutes. Be back next week with a whole heap of stuff. Peace!